Have you ever wondered how online shopping manages to feel so smooth? Or how your favorite food delivery app always knows exactly where your order is, right down to the minute? It feels like magic, doesn't it? You tap a button, money moves, products shift across warehouses, trucks start their engines, and eventually someone knocks on your door. But behind all that convenience lies a hidden world of complex systems working tirelessly in the background. Today, we are going to pull back the curtain on one of those systems. We are going to talk about something called KRO. Now, if you haven't heard of KRO before, don't worry. You aren't alone. It isn't a flashy app you download, nor is it a gadget you buy at the store. Instead, think of Crow as the invisible skeleton of a business, specifically for companies that have to deal with a lot of moving parts. The name itself might sound technical, but the idea behind it is actually very human. At its core, KRO is about keeping things organized, making sure money isn't lost in the cracks, and ensuring that when a customer asks for something, the business can actually deliver it without falling apart. To understand KRO, we first need to look at why businesses struggle in the first place. Imagine running a small lemonade stand. It's easy. You have lemons, sugar, water, and a jar. Someone gives you $1, you give them a cup. Simple. But what if that lemonade stand suddenly became famous? What if you had a line going around the block? Suppliers calling you every hour, and you had to hire 10 of your friends just to keep up. Suddenly it's not so simple. You forget who paid you. You run out of sugar. A friend thinks they are supposed to be squeezing lemons, but you actually needed them on the cash register. Chaos. This is the exact problem big companies face every single day. Just on a massive scale, they have thousands of employees, warehouses full of inventory, and millions of customers. If they tried to run it like that chaotic lemonade stand, they would go broke in a week. This is where KRO steps in. It acts as the ultimate manager, the one person who sees everything. But instead of a person shouting orders, it is a system of rules and logic that guides the business. Let's break down what KRO actually does. It stands for a way of organizing resources, but let's stick to simple English. It is a method to make sure that every single request a customer makes is matched perfectly with what the company has in stock or can produce. It prevents the nightmare scenario where a company sells something it doesn't actually have. Think about the last time you bought a pair of shoes online. You saw the size, you clicked buy, and the website said, order confirmed. But how did the website know those shoes were actually there? It's because of systems like KRO. In the milliseconds after you clicked, the system checked the warehouse. It looked at the digital shelves. It saw one pair left. It locked that pair to your name so no one else could buy it. Then it told the shipping department to go get it. That entire dance? That is Crow in action, but it isn't just about physical items like shoes. Crow is equally important for services. Think about booking a flight. When you search for tickets, you are seeing real-time data. There are only a specific number of seats on a plane. If the airline sells too many tickets, people get stuck at the gate, and the airline gets in big trouble. Crow systems act as the gatekeeper. They track every seat, every cancellation, and every booking change to ensure that the number of tickets sold never exceeds the number of seats available. It balances the desire to make money with the reality of physical space. The really interesting part about Crow is how it handles mistakes. Because let's be honest, humans make mistakes. A warehouse worker might drop a box and break the item. A delivery driver might take a wrong turn. Data might get entered incorrectly into a computer. Without a system like KRO, these mistakes would turn into headaches for the customer. You might get an email saying your package is coming, but it never shows up because it was broken 3 days ago and no one told the system. A robust KRO system creates a safety net. When that worker breaks the item, they scan the barcode and mark it as damaged. Immediately, the KRO system updates. It sees that the stock count has dropped by 1. If you had ordered that specific item just moments before, the system might flag it and say, "Wait, we can't fulfill this order. We need to alert the customer or send a replacement from a different warehouse." It connects the dots instantly. It takes a disconnected error and turns it into a manageable task. This is why modern shopping feels so reliable. We rarely see the behind-the-scenes disasters because the system catches them before they reach our doorstep. Another fascinating aspect of KRO is how it helps businesses predict the future. This sounds like science fiction, but it's really just math and history. Every time you buy something, every time you search for a product, and every time you return an item, you are creating data. KRO systems gobble up this data. They look for patterns. For example, if the system notices that people in a certain city buy a lot of umbrellas every time the weather forecast predicts rain, it prepares. It will automatically suggest to the supply chain managers to ship more umbrellas to the stores in that city. It might even adjust the price slightly based on demand. This is all happening without a human staring at the weather report and manually making phone calls. The system is smart enough to connect the weather forecast to sales trends. This ensures that when you run to the store to buy an umbrella before a storm, they actually have one in stock. It is this predictive power that makes businesses efficient. Instead of reacting to problems, they are anticipating them before they happen. However, KRO isn't just about cold, hard logic and numbers. There's a very human side to it as well. Think about the people working in these companies. Before these kinds of systems were around, running a supply chain was a stressful job. It involved endless spreadsheets, phone calls, and guesswork. If a manager ordered too much stock, they were blamed for wasting money. If they ordered too little, they were blamed for lost sales. It was a lose-lose situation. With KRO, the burden on the employees is lifted. They don't have to guess. The system gives them recommendations. It might say, based on current trends, you should order 500 units of this product next week. The manager can then focus on other things, like improving the quality of the product or negotiating better deals with suppliers. It empowers people to do their jobs better. It removes the anxiety of, did I make the right choice? And replaces it with data-driven confidence. When employees are less stressed and more confident, the whole company runs smoother. And when a company runs smoother, the customer has a better experience. Let's look at this from a financial angle, because money makes the world go round, right? For a business, cash is king. But inventory stuff sitting on shelves is basically cash trapped in boxes. If a company has millions of dollars tied up in products that nobody wants to buy, they are in trouble. They can't pay their bills, they can't hire new people, and they can't innovate. They are stuck. KRO helps free up that cash. By accurately tracking what sells and what doesn't, a company can stop ordering useless junk. They can invest their money into things that actually matter. This is crucial for small businesses trying to grow and for massive corporations trying to stay afloat. It is the difference between a business that thrives and one that slowly dies. It ensures that the hard-earned money people spend is being used wisely to create more value for everyone, rather than just gathering dust in a warehouse. We should also talk about how KRO changes the relationship between a business and its suppliers. Suppliers are the companies that provide the raw materials or parts. In the old days, this relationship was often full of friction. A bakery might order flour from a mill. If the bakery suddenly ran out, they would call the mill in a panic, begging for a rush order. The mill would have to disrupt their schedule to help out, maybe charging extra for the rush. It was a reactive, stressful way to do business. With a KRO approach, the relationship becomes a partnership. The bakery system can see exactly how much flour is being used every day. It knows exactly when the stock will run low. It can automatically place an order with the mill days in advance, scheduled to arrive exactly when the flour runs out. The mill gets a steady, predictable stream of orders which helps them plan their work. The bakery never runs out. There are no panic phone calls. Everyone wins. This smooth flow of goods is often called just-in-time delivery, and it relies entirely on the kind of tracking and management KRO provides. Now, you might be thinking, this all sounds great for big companies, but what does it have to do with me? Well, it has everything to do with you. Every time you expect a package to arrive in 2 days and it actually does, you are benefiting from this. Every time you go to the grocery store and your favorite brand of cereal is there, you are seeing the result of this system. It raises the standard of living. It saves us time. It saves us frustration. We live in an era of instant gratification and we often take it for granted. We get annoyed if a delivery is late by an hour, not realizing the incredible logistics. Ballet that had to happen to get it there on time at all. The beauty of KRO is that it is invisible when it works. You only notice it when it fails. Think back to a time when you tried to buy something online and you got an email days later saying, "Sorry." Undefined, we are back for the second part of this journey. If you remember where we left off, we were talking about how life throws curveballs at us. We discussed how sitting around and waiting for a miracle isn't the strategy that works. Now, in this part, we need to get a little bit deeper. We need to talk about the actual mechanics of how you turn things around when you feel like you are stuck in the mud. It is easy to talk about success when everything is going right, but what about when everything is going wrong? That is where the real test lies. Think about the last time you really wanted to do something. Maybe it was learning a new skill, or starting a new routine, or even just fixing a relationship that was broken. You probably started with a lot of fire, a lot of energy. You felt like nothing could stop you. But then, a few days or weeks later, that fire started to fade. The excitement wore off, and suddenly it just felt like hard work. This is the exact moment where the separation happens. This is the point where most people turn back and go to their comfort zone. But not you. Not anymore. We have to understand a very simple but harsh truth about life. Motivation is a feeling, and feelings are temporary. They are like the weather. One day it is sunny, the next day it is raining. If you only work when you feel motivated, you are going to be very inconsistent. You will be like a leaf in the wind, blowing in whatever direction the wind takes you that day. To really expand your life and reach the goals we talked about earlier, you have to learn how to operate without motivation. You have to learn the art of discipline. Now, I know the word discipline sounds boring. It sounds like a strict teacher or a military camp. But actually, discipline is your best friend. It is the only thing that will pick you up off the couch when you are sad, tired, or just lazy. Discipline is that quiet voice in your head that says, "Do it anyway." It is not about punishing yourself. It is about loving yourself enough to do what is necessary, even when it hurts a little bit. Let's talk about the valley of despair. This is a term used to describe that middle part of any journey. In the beginning, you have the excitement phase. Everything is new and fun. At the end, you have the success phase where you get the reward. But in the middle, it is dark, it is boring. You can't see the finish line and you've forgotten why you started. This valley is where dreams go to die. Most people quit in the valley because they don't see immediate results. We live in a world of instant gratification. We order food and it arrives in 10 minutes. We send a message and we get a reply in 10 seconds. We have lost the ability to wait for things. We have lost the ability to trust the process. You have to rewire your brain to understand that good things take time. It is just like planting a seed. When you put a seed in the soil, you don't dig it up every day to check if it is growing. You water it, you give it sunlight, and you wait. You trust that under the surface, roots are forming. You might not see any green shoots for weeks, but that doesn't mean nothing is happening. Your life is the same way. Just because you can't see the results of your hard work today, doesn't mean it isn't working. One of the biggest traps people fall into is the all-or-nothing mindset. Have you ever met someone who said, "I'm going to change my whole life tomorrow"? They wake up at 5 a.m., they go to the gym for 2 hours, they eat only vegetables, they read 3 books, and by 4 p.m., they are exhausted and hate their life. By the next day, they are back to their old habits. This is because they tried to run a marathon without ever training for a mile. Expansion doesn't happen in giant leaps. It happens in tiny steps. This brings us to the concept of the 1% rule. It is so simple yet so powerful. Instead of trying to be 100% better tomorrow, just try to be 1% better. That's it. Maybe 1% better means drinking 1 glass of water instead of soda. Maybe it means reading 2 pages of a book instead of none. Maybe it means just making your bed in the morning. These small wins might seem pointless. You might think, how is making my bed going to make me successful? It's not about the bed. It is about the habit. It is about sending a signal to your brain that you are in control. It builds self-respect. When you stack these small wins on top of each other, day after day, they create a massive mountain of momentum. We also need to talk about the people around you. This is a sensitive topic, but it is crucial. You are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. Look around at your circle. Are they dreamers? Are they builders? Or are they complainers? If you are trying to elevate your life, but you are constantly surrounded by people who are pulling you down, who are negative, or who are satisfied with mediocrity, you are fighting a losing battle. It is like trying to run up a downward escalator. You might make it, but it is going to be incredibly difficult. Sometimes expansion means outgrowing relationships. It doesn't mean you have to be mean or cut people off harshly, but it does mean you might need to create some distance. You need to protect your energy. You need to be around people who clap when you win, not people who get jealous. You need people who challenge you, who ask you questions about your goals, and who hold you accountable. If you are the smartest or most ambitious person in your group, you are in the wrong group. You need to find a pond where you are the small fish, because that is the only way you will grow bigger. Another thing that holds people back is the fear of judgment. We are so scared of what others will think. What if I fail and they laugh? What if I look stupid? Let me tell you a secret. People are not thinking about you as much as you think they are. Everyone is the main character in their own movie. They are too busy worrying about their own lives, their own bills, and their own insecurities to spend much time judging you. And even if they do judge you, so what? Does their opinion pay your bills? Does their opinion make you happy? No, you have to let go of the need for approval. The only approval you need is from the person looking back at you in the mirror. Failure is another big topic we need to normalize. In school, we are taught that failure is bad. If you get an F, you are in trouble. But in the real world, failure is data. It is feedback. Think about a toddler learning to walk. They stand up, they wobble, and they fall. Do they sit there and say, well, I guess walking isn't for me? I'm just going to crawl for the rest of my life? No, they get up and try again. They adjust their balance. They learn. Why do we lose that ability as adults? Why do we become so fragile? You need to treat your life like a series of experiments. If something doesn't work, that's fine. You just found one way that doesn't work. Now try another way. Let's talk about the power of saying no. This is a superpower. We often say yes to everything because we want to be nice. We say yes to going out when we are tired. We say yes to extra work we don't have time for. We say yes to favors that drain us. But every time you say yes to something small, you are saying no to something big for yourself. You are saying no to your rest, no to your goals, no to your peace. Expanding your life means guarding your time fiercely. Your time is the most valuable asset you have. You can always make more money, but you can never make more time. Once a second is gone, it is gone forever. So, be careful who and what you give your time to. It is also important to talk about the stories we tell ourselves. We all have a little narrator in our heads. I'm not good with money. I'm not a morning person. I'm too old to change. These are just stories. They are not facts. They are just habits of thinking. And the good news is you can change the story. You can rewrite the script. Instead of saying, I have to go to work, say, I get to go to work. Instead of saying, I can't afford that, say, how can I afford that? Changing your language changes your mindset. It opens up possibilities instead of closing them. As we move toward the end of this part, I want you to think about your why. Why are you doing all this? Why do you want to be better? If your why is just to buy a fancy car or to impress your neighbors, that motivation will run out very quickly. Cars get old. Neighbors move away. You need a deeper reason. Maybe your why is to provide a better life for your family. Maybe it is to prove to yourself that you are capable of greatness. Maybe it is to leave a legacy. That kind of fuel burns forever. When you connect your daily actions to a deep purpose, you become unstoppable. So, as you go forward from here, I want you to keep these things in mind. Expect the valley of despair and don't quit when you get there. Focus on the 1% improvements. Look at your circle of friends. Stop worrying about what strangers think. And rewrite the story you tell yourself about who you are. This journey isn't a straight line. It is a messy, chaotic, beautiful zigzag. But as long as you keep moving forward, as long as you keep expanding, you are winning. We have covered a lot of ground in this part. We have stripped away the excuses and looked at the raw mechanics of growth. But there is still more to come. We haven't talked about how to handle success when it actually arrives, and how to make sure you don't self-sabotage. We also need to talk about balance, how to chase your dreams without losing your mind or your health. So, stick with me. Take a deep breath. Check your mindset, and let's get ready for the next chapter. The best is yet to come, but only if you are willing to put in the work that we have discussed today. You have the tools. Now it is time to use. Undefined silence in this place is the first thing that really gets to you. It's not just quiet, it's heavy. It presses against your ears like deep water. You know that feeling when you swim to the bottom of a pool and everything sounds muffled and far away? That is exactly what it feels like standing here in front of KRO. We have been walking for hours, or maybe it has been days. It is hard to tell when there are no windows and the lights just buzz with the same dull, electric tone constantly. My legs are burning and my throat feels like I swallowed a handful of sand, but none of that matters right now. All that matters is what is sitting in the middle of this room. KRO looks different up close. In the stories or in the files we found back at the start, they always described it as a machine, a tool, something built to fix problems. But seeing it with your own eyes changes everything. It doesn't look like a tool. It looks like a sleeping giant. The metal isn't shiny and new. It is covered in layers of dust and grime that have built up over who knows how many years. There are scratches along the sides, deep gouges that look like claw marks. It makes you wonder what happened here. Did something try to fight it? Or was it trying to break out? I reached out my hand to touch the surface. It was colder than I expected, a biting chill that went straight through my glove. For a second, nothing happened. I let out a breath I didn't even know I was holding. Maybe it was dead. Maybe the batteries ran out a century ago and we just walked all this way for nothing. But then I felt it. A vibration. It was so faint at first that I thought I was imagining it, just the shaking of my own tired muscles. But then it grew stronger. A low hum started to build up from inside the thing like a purring cat, but deeper, rougher. It vibrated in my chest. "Step back," someone whispered behind me. I didn't turn around. I couldn't take my eyes off the front panel of KRO. Lights were starting to flicker to life. Not the bright, clean LEDs we are used to seeing in our time. These were old-school, bulky lights that glowed with a warm orange color. They flashed in a pattern, slow and rhythmic. It felt like a heartbeat, thump, 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 thump. Seeing a machine have a heartbeat makes you question reality a little bit. It makes it feel alive. And that is both amazing and absolutely terrifying at the same time. The air around us started to change. The smell of ozone and stale dust began to clear, replaced by something sharper, like the air right after a lightning storm. My hair started to stand up on end from the static electricity. I took a few steps backward, just like I was told to, but I couldn't look away. The center of KRO's chest plate began to shift. Gears grinding against each other, metal sliding over metal with a screech that made my teeth hurt. Slowly a lens cover slid open. It was dark inside, like a tunnel going down into the earth. Then, the beam of light shot out. It wasn't a laser weapon or anything dangerous. It was a scanner. A blue fan of light swept across the room, cutting through the darkness. It hit the walls, the piles of junk in the corner, and then it swung around and hit me. I froze. The light felt warm, like the sun on your face in the middle of summer. It swept up and down my body, reading me, measuring me. I felt naked under that gaze, even though it was just light. It felt like it was looking right through my skin and into my thoughts. I wondered if it could see how scared I was. I wondered if it knew I was just a normal person who stumbled into this mess. The light stopped on me and held steady. A whirring sound started up, like a computer processing a million tasks at once. I waited for a voice, a robot voice, something mechanical and cold. But what came out of the speakers was completely different. It sounded like a recording of a crowd of people, all talking at once, layered over each other until it was just a wash of noise. Then, the noise faded away and a single, clear voice emerged. It didn't sound like a robot. It sounded like a tired old man. "Identification incomplete," the voice said. "Biological scan confirms, human, status, critical." I looked at my companions. They were staring, wide-eyed. We knew the risks of coming here. We knew that the old world was dangerous, that the technology left behind was unpredictable. But hearing this thing call my status critical hit hard. I wasn't hurt. I was just tired, hungry, and maybe a little hopeless. But maybe that is what it meant. Maybe the machine could sense that we were losing the fight out there. "We need help," I said aloud. My voice cracked. It felt silly talking to a pile of metal, but I didn't know what else to do. "We are running out of resources. The walls outside are failing. We can't keep the dark out anymore." Crow didn't answer right away. The blue light retreated back into the lens, and the room dimmed again, leaving only the orange heartbeat lights pulsing. The hum got louder, shifting pitch until it was almost a whine. I thought it was going to explode. I grabbed my bag and prepared to run, diving for cover behind a stack of crates. But instead of exploding, the machine began to transform. The sides of the pod opened up like wings. Arms, or maybe they were tentacles made of interlocking metal segments, unfolded from the back. They waved in the air, testing their range, moving with a fluid grace that nothing made of steel should have. It looked like a spider, and a crane had a baby, and it was beautiful in a weird, scary way. One of the arms dipped down toward the floor. It didn't smash. It was gentle. It picked up a small piece of debris, a broken piece of plastic, and held it up to the eye. "Analyzing," the voice said. "Composition? Synthetic polymer? Replication possible." My heart skipped a beat. Replication? If it could make things, if it could build, then maybe we had a chance after all. We weren't just looking at a history exhibit. We were looking at a factory. A factory that might actually work. I stood up slowly from behind the crates. "Can you make parts?" I asked, stepping closer. "Can you make the parts we need to fix the filters? To fix the water pumps?" The machine swiveled its upper body toward me. The eye lens focused, zooming in. "Database damaged," it replied. "Schematics corrupted. I require input. I require memory." I didn't understand what it meant at first. Memory? How do you give a machine a memory? But then I remembered the stories my grandfather used to tell me. He said that the old technology wasn't just run by code. It was run by connection. It needed to understand who it was helping. It wasn't enough to just ask for a part. You had to show it why the part mattered. I walked right up to the main console. There was a flat surface there, smooth and black. I didn't see any buttons or keyboards, but I had a feeling I knew what to do. I placed my hand flat on the surface. Immediately, a jolt went through me, not painful, but startling. Images flashed in my mind. The dusty road we walked to get here. The faces of the people waiting back home, counting on us to bring back something useful. The fear in everyone's eyes when the sun sets and the shadows get long. The machine shuddered. The orange lights turned blue. The whining sound smoothed out into a melodious chime. "Emotional pattern recognized," the voice said, and this time it sounded stronger, less tired. "Empathy protocols engaged. Priority, survival of the collective." One of the metal arms moved quickly now. It went to a dispenser on the side of the room that I hadn't even noticed. It grabbed a canister of raw material, some silvery liquid, and brought it over to the center. The arms began to move so fast they blurred. Sparks flew, hissing and sizzling. The smell of melting metal filled the air, but it wasn't unpleasant. It smelled like progress. It smelled like hope. I stood there and watched, mesmerized. It was making something. I couldn't tell what it was yet. It looked like a tangled mess of wires and rods. But it was building it layer by layer with incredible precision. I looked at the others and saw the relief on their faces. We weren't going to die in this room. We were actually going to walk out of here with something that could save us, while KRO worked. I started to notice other things about the room. There were screens built into the walls that were slowly lighting up. They showed maps of the area, but not the area as it is now. They showed it green and lush, with buildings that touched the clouds and rivers that sparkled. It was a ghost of a world that died a long time ago. Seeing it made me sad, but it also made me angry. We lost so much. We let all of this beauty rot away because we couldn't get along, but looking at Crow, working tirelessly to create a simple part for us, I felt a bit of that anger fade. The past was gone. We couldn't bring back the trees or the oceans, not today. But we could fix the water pump. We could buy ourselves another week, another month. And maybe, just maybe, if we kept finding things like this, we could start building something new. The machine stopped with a loud click. The arms retracted, folding back neatly against its body. The blue lights faded back to that rhythmic orange pulse. In the center of the construction chamber, a small, intricate metal object sat cooling. It glowed slightly in the dim light. I reached in carefully and picked it up. It was warm, perfectly balanced, and exactly what we needed. It was the pressure regulator for the water system. It looked brand new, better than anything we could have cobbled together with scrap. "Thank you," I whispered to the machine. It felt strange to thank a hunk of metal, but it felt necessary. "Service is the purpose," Crow replied. "But energy reserves are at 4%. Initiating standby mode." The orange lights began to dim, one by one. Undefined, you reach part 4 of anything. The excitement usually starts to fade a little. Think about it. You start a new movie or you start a new book, and the beginning is full of energy. You are just discovering things. By the time you get to the middle, it gets harder. It feels like work. This is exactly where most people quit. They think that because the spark isn't popping as bright as it was at the start, something is wrong. But actually, this is the most important part of the whole journey. This is where KRO, keep rolling on, really matters. It's easy to move when the wind is at your back, but what do you do when the air gets still and heavy? We have talked about starting and we have talked about building the path. Now, we need to talk about the long road. The part where it feels like you are walking through mud. You have to understand that this feeling is not a sign that you are failing. It is a sign that you are deep in the process. It is a sign that you have moved past the easy phase and are now doing the real work. You are building something that lasts, and things that last take time. Let's talk about the feeling of being stuck. We all know this feeling. You wake up in the morning and you check your phone and you see everyone else winning. You see people talking about their huge success, their perfect mornings, their great days. And then you look at your own life. Maybe you didn't hit your goal yesterday. Maybe you felt tired. Maybe you tried something and it didn't work out. That little voice in the back of your head starts to whisper. It says, "See? You aren't good enough. Why are you even trying? You should just stop." This is the moment where KRO changes from a simple phrase into a weapon. When that voice gets loud, you don't have to fight it with anger. You just have to take one small step. That is what rolling is. It is not about leaping over mountains every single day. Some days, rolling just means opening your laptop. Some days, rolling just means putting on your shoes. Some days, rolling just means drinking a glass of water and trying to be nice to yourself. You are keeping the momentum alive, even if it is just a tiny bit. The biggest lie we tell ourselves is that we need motivation to act. We think we need to feel a certain way, excited, happy, pumped up before we do the thing. But the truth is, action produces motivation, not the other way around. If you sit around waiting to feel like doing the work, you might be waiting forever. You have to act first. You start rolling, and as the wheels turn, you start to feel better. You start to get ideas. You start to remember why you started in the first place. You have to trust the process of movement. Physics tells us that an object in motion stays in motion. You are that object. You just have to get yourself moving, even an inch. Think about a heavy stone wheel. It is incredibly hard to push at first. It takes all your strength just to get it to budge an inch. But once it is rolling, it has its own energy. It wants to keep going. The hardest part is the start, and the second hardest part is the middle when you have gone a long way and you are tired. But if you can just nudge that wheel a little more, it keeps going. You are building that history of movement. Every time you choose to do the work when you don't feel like it, you are making the wheel a little lighter for tomorrow. There is also a trap that we fall into, and that is the trap of the perfect plan. We love to plan. We love to draw maps and write down exactly how we are going to conquer the world. Planning feels good because it is safe. In your head, the plan always works. But reality is messy. You might have a plan and then you get sick, or you have a bad day, or something changes in your life. If you are too attached to the plan, you will break when life happens. But if you are attached to the principle of just keeping rolling, you can go around the obstacles. You don't need a perfect map. You just need to keep walking. Let's talk about dealing with mistakes. We are so afraid of messing up. We think one mistake ruins the whole journey. Imagine you are eating a healthy diet and you eat one donut. Do you say, well, I messed up, so I might as well eat the whole box? No, that sounds ridiculous when you say it out loud, but we do this with our goals all the time. We skip one workout, so we quit the gym. We miss one day of writing, so we throw the book away. This is all or nothing thinking, and it will kill your progress every time. Crow means forgiveness. It means realizing that a stumble is not a fall. It means if you miss a day, you just show up the next day. You don't have to do extra to punish yourself. You don't have to feel guilty. You just roll. You pick up where you left off. Consistency is not about being perfect. It is about never stopping for too long. It is about the ability to return to the path over and over again. Another thing that happens in this stage is comparison. In the beginning, everyone is cheering for you. By part 4, the crowd is gone. Everyone else has gone back to their own lives. You look around and see people who seem to be moving faster than you. But here is the truth about racehorses. They wear blinders. They wear them so they don't look at the horse next to them. They look straight ahead. If they looked sideways, they would trip. You need to put on your blinders. Stop looking at what everyone else is doing. You are running your own race. You are on your own timeline. Their speed does not matter. Their success does not take away from yours. The only person you should try to be better than is the person you were yesterday. It is also important to find joy in the boring stuff. We want life to be a movie trailer, high points, loud music, drama. But real life is mostly just the scenes between the drama. It is washing the dishes. It is driving to work. It is sending the email. It is the routine. If you can't find peace in the routine, you will be miserable waiting for the next big win. Learn to like the quiet hum of the engine. Learn to appreciate the discipline of showing up. There is a deep satisfaction in knowing that you did the thing even when nobody was watching. That builds a kind of confidence that applause can never give you. Sometimes you have to change your definition of winning. Maybe you thought winning meant getting 1 million followers or making a lot of money. But right now, winning means not giving up. Right now, winning means you are still here, reading this, trying to improve. That is a victory. You have survived every bad day you have ever had up until this point. You have a 100% success rate of surviving tough times. You can handle this too. As you keep rolling, you will notice that you are changing. It isn't just the outside results, it is the inside stuff. You get tougher. You get calmer. Things that used to stress you out don't bother you as much because you have faced bigger challenges and kept going. You are building grit. Grit is like a muscle. You have to use it for it to grow. The heavy lifting you are doing now, the struggle, the doubt, that is the gym where you build your grit. And that muscle will help you for the rest of your life, not just for this one goal. So, what do you do when you feel like you can't take another step? You take a break, but you don't quit. Resting is part of rolling. You have to stop at a gas station to fill up the tank. That isn't quitting the trip. That is necessary maintenance. Listen to your body and your mind. If you are exhausted, sleep. If you are burned out, take a walk. But keep your eyes on the horizon. Remind yourself why you started. Write it down if you have to. Look at the evidence of how far you have already come. You didn't get this far to stop now. The world is full of people who had great ideas but didn't have the stamina to finish. The world is full of half-written books and half-built businesses. But you are different. You are learning the secret. The secret isn't talent. The secret isn't luck. The secret is just staying in the game. It is about enduring the boring parts and pushing through the hard parts. Imagine yourself a year from now. If you keep rolling, where will you be? You won't be in the same spot. You will be miles ahead. You will look back at this moment and smile because you didn't let the doubt win. You just kept putting one foot in front of the other. It doesn't matter how slow you go, as long as you do not stop. So, today, don't worry about the huge finish line. Don't worry about next year or next month. Just focus on today. What is one small thing you can do? Can you write one paragraph? Can you do 10 push-ups? Can you make one healthy meal? Do that, then do it again tomorrow. That is KRO. That is the magic. It is simple, but it is not easy. It requires heart. It requires courage. But you have both of those things inside you. Keep the wheels turning. Ignore the noise. Trust the process. You are doing better than you think. The path is yours, and every step forward is a victory. Undefined air down here didn't just smell old. It felt heavy, like a blanket made of lead. I paused for a moment, leaning my back against the cold, smooth wall of the corridor. My flashlight beam cut through the darkness, revealing dust particles dancing in the stale air. This was it. Part of the deep structure of KRO. We had been moving for hours, or maybe it was days. Time gets a little fuzzy when you are underground this long. Surrounded by metal and silence. My legs were burning. Every step felt like I was wearing lead boots. I looked down at my gear. The straps were digging into my shoulders, a constant reminder of the weight we were carrying. But the physical tiredness was nothing compared to the mental strain. Crow isn't just a building or a bunker. It's a maze designed to test you. The silence here isn't empty. It feels like it's watching you. You know that feeling when you walk into a room and someone has just left? That cold spot in the air? It was like that, but constant. I took a sip from my canteen. The water was warm and tasted like plastic, but it was the only thing keeping me going. As I swallowed, I looked at the person ahead of me. They were scanning the wall with a device, looking for a switch or a panel. We didn't use names down here anymore. It felt safer that way, less personal, in case things went wrong. We were just a team moving toward the center. "I think I found something," the voice whispered. It echoed slightly, bouncing off the curved ceiling. I pushed myself off the wall and walked over. There, hidden under a layer of grime that had built up over who knows how many decades, was a keypad. It wasn't like the electronic ones we use on the surface. This was mechanical, with buttons that actually clicked when you pressed them. It looked simple, but knowing Crow, it was probably the start of a very complex puzzle. "Ready?" I asked. The other person nodded and wiped the dust away with a gloved hand. They pressed the first button. A deep, resonating thud vibrated through the floor beneath our feet. It wasn't loud, but you felt it in your bones. Then, a sound like gears grinding together started up behind the wall. It was a slow, groaning noise, like a giant waking up from a long nap. We stepped back, hands near our belts, just in case. Slowly, the metal wall began to slide apart. It didn't slide open smoothly like a modern door. It scraped and protested, shedding flakes of rust as it moved. A puff of air rushed out, air that was even colder than what we were breathing when the door was fully open. The light from our flashlights didn't just hit a wall, it disappeared into a vast space. We stepped inside, and my jaw dropped. I had expected another hallway, maybe a control room full of computers. But this was something else entirely. It was a massive cavern, far bigger than anything we had seen so far in KRO. The ceiling was lost in darkness above us. But the most incredible thing was what was filling the room. There were rows and rows of tall glass tubes stretching as far as the light could reach. They were glowing with a faint, soft blue light. It looked like a forest made of glass. We walked slowly toward the nearest tube. It was about 10 feet tall, sealed at the top and bottom. Inside, floating in a clear liquid, was a tree. Not a sapling, but a fully formed oak tree, its leaves preserved perfectly. Looking as if it had just been plucked from a forest yesterday, I moved my light to the next tube. It held a bush of bright red flowers. The next one had a vine that looked like it belonged in a jungle. Crow wasn't just a shelter. It was an ark. Whoever built this place didn't just want to save people. They wanted to save the green world. They had stored samples of every plant they could find, keeping them in this strange, suspended animation. "It's beautiful," I whispered. My voice sounded tiny in the huge room. The silence here felt different. It wasn't threatening anymore. It was respectful. It felt like a library, but instead of books, the stories were told in leaves and bark. I reached out and touched the glass. It was freezing cold. I wondered if the tree inside could feel the warmth of my hand through the glass. Probably not, but it felt like a connection anyway. We walked deeper into the forest of glass. The blue light cast long, strange shadows on the floor. It was peaceful, a stark contrast to the gritty industrial tunnels we had been crawling through for so long. For the first time in hours, my shoulders relaxed. The panic that had been bubbling in my chest started to fade, but then we heard a noise. It wasn't the groaning of metal or the sound of the wind. It was a rhythmic beeping. It was coming from the far end of the room. We looked at each other. The peace was broken instantly. We moved toward the sound, keeping our steps light. The glass towers gave way to a more open area in the center of the room. There, sitting on a raised platform, was a console. It looked older than the rest of the technology, bulky and gray. A red light on top of it was blinking in time with the beeping. I approached it carefully. There was a screen, flickering with static. Then the static cleared and text appeared. It wasn't a warning or a countdown. It was a log entry. The date on it was years old, almost from the time when KRO was first sealed. The message was simple. It talked about the Green Protocol. It explained that the power in this section was running on emergency reserves, designed to keep the life support systems for the plants running for as long as possible. But the message ended with a warning. The reserves were critical. If the main power wasn't restored soon, the cooling systems would fail, and everything in this room would die within a week. I looked back at the giant oak tree in the glass tube. A week. That was all the time left for this silent, beautiful sanctuary. It felt unfair. They had survived for so long, hidden away from the world, only to die now when we were so close. "We have to find the generator," I said, my voice hard. The tiredness was gone, replaced by a new sense of purpose. We weren't just exploring anymore. We were on a clock. We left the glass forest and found a door on the other side of the platform. It led into a new corridor, but this one was different. The walls were covered in pipes, thick and rusted, dripping water onto the floor. The air was humid here, thick with the smell of wet earth and mold. It was gross, but it meant we were getting closer to the water and power systems. The ground became slippery. I had to watch my footing. One wrong step, and I could twist an ankle, and out here, that was a death sentence. We moved slower, carefully placing our boots on the solid parts of the floor. Suddenly, the floor shook. Not a vibration this time, but a real shake. Dust rained down from the ceiling pipes. I grabbed the railing to keep my balance. "What was that?" the voice asked, sounding tense. "Structure settling," I guessed, though I didn't believe it. Or maybe the machinery is stressing out. We kept moving, but the tension was back, thicker than before. Every shadow looked like a threat. Every drip of water sounded like a footstep. We turned a corner and saw why the corridor was so wet. A pipe had burst. Water was gushing out like a geyser, flooding the hallway. It was blocking our path. The water was dark and looked oily. We couldn't wade through it. The current was too strong, and who knew what was in that water? We looked around for another way. There was a narrow walkway attached to the side of the wall, about waist high. It looked like a maintenance lane for workers. It was barely wide enough for one person. "I'll go first," I said. I didn't wait for an argument. I grabbed the underside of the walkway and hoisted myself up. The metal was slick with moisture. I shimmied along, keeping my eyes fixed on the wall, ignoring the rushing water below. My arms screamed in protest. This was the last thing my tired muscles needed. I made it to the other side and dropped down, landing in a crouch. I turned around and shone my light back for the other person. They followed, slower and more careful. When they dropped down next to me, we both let out a breath we didn't know we were holding. We were through the worst of it. Ahead, the corridor was dry, and I could see a heavy steel door with yellow stripes painted on it. That was the standard symbol for power management. We walked up to it. There was no keypad this time, just a large wheel handle like on a submarine. I grabbed it. It was stiff, resisting me at first. I planted my feet, gritted my teeth, and pulled with everything I had. The metal groaned, and slowly the wheel turned. Once it broke loose, it spun more easily. I pulled the heavy door open. Warm air washed over us. Inside, the hum of machinery was loud, a constant, vibrating drone. It was a massive room full of turbines and generators. Most of them were dark and still, but in the center, one machine was glowing with a soft orange light. It was the backup generator, but there was a problem. A control panel in front of it was sparking. Wires hung down from the ceiling, exposed and frayed. The transfer switch was stuck in the off position. I walked over to the panel, careful not to step in the puddle of water forming on the floor from the leaking pipes overhead. I looked at the mess of wires. I wasn't an engineer, but I knew basics. I needed to bridge the connection to get the switch to move. I pulled out my multi-tool. "Hold the light steady," I said. I stripped the ends of 2 wires. My hands were shaking slightly, not from fear, but from exhaustion. One slip, and I could electrocute myself. I took a deep breath, focused on the copper wire, and touched them together.